When I was 15, I was a member of a girls' club, and that I became one of the elected officials in that club. I was the chairperson of this big event that we were having, and it pretty much consumed everything that we were doing, so it was a significant position. But it wasn't the presidency. I didn't run for that. I'm not sure why. I just didn't. And when I came here to Detroit, one of the first things I did was join the Wolverine Bar Association, and I began to do the kind of work that needed to be done, which led to me becoming the secretary and then the treasurer and then the president of the Wolverine Bar Association. And in that process, I learned about the National Bar Association. The National Bar Association was the association that black lawyers belonged to when we couldn't be a part of the American Bar Association. It was a very old and venerable institution, and I decided to run for vice president of the National Bar. So I did that, and I won, and then became president-elect and then president of the National Bar Association. There was a lot of politics in that. I wasn't sure that that's what was going on. I, in the beginning, thought maybe people were just, it was all personal, but it really wasn't. It was about power and control and who was going to be responsible for what. I was able to do some very good things in the National Bar Association, but one of the best things was I got to know a lot of people that can do a lot of things for this city. And some of those people include President Bill Clinton and some of the people in Congress who I actually did some pretty direct work with on issues that affect communities like ours. By appointment of Mayor Coleman Young, when I was president of the Wolverine Bar Association, I became a member of the Detroit Police Commission. I served for 5 years on the commission and became the chairman in my final year. Also during that time, I was a member of and an officer in the National Bar Association and became president of the National Bar Association in 1991. That year spanned the first part of 1992. And as I left office as president of the National Bar Association, I had this feeling that everything that I had seen and all of the people that I had met coming together could create opportunities for the city of Detroit. And the only way that I could think of to do that, to bring all that together, was as the mayor. And so I decided that I would run for mayor in 1992, and I did that in 1993. There were 26 candidates in the race for mayor, and nobody thought that I had a chance to win because nobody knew me. I was Sharon who, and there was Dennis Archer, of course, who was one of the other candidates, John Conyers, Art Blackwell. There were many, many people whose names I'm sure all of you know. But when it came down to the primary election, the only two people left standing were Dennis Archer and myself. And I did win the primary for mayor. Although the entire media establishment said from the very beginning, she can't win. She won't win the primary. It's going to be someone else. I did win. And it was from that point, the next 6 weeks was all we had to the general election. And unfortunately, the amount of money that it took to fight an effective campaign, I really didn't have. I raised $1 million, but it didn't beat the $4 million on the other side. So we didn't win the general election that time. But it was an amazing experience, and it taught me a lot about politics. Detroit government today has a lot of issues, primarily starting with the fact that people have been leaving here for as long as I've been here. We've had large numbers of people leave the city of Detroit. And why is that important? Well, in most cities, the city it pays its bills on property taxes. And most cities pay about 60 to 70% of the bills that they have with property taxes. In Detroit, it's 11%, because most of the people who've had resources, who have jobs, they've left the city. And there's a lot of reasons why they say they've left, and those reasons form some of the issues that are before us in this next term, whoever becomes the next mayor. Primarily, first among those is the issue of crime and whether or not crime is impacting people in the city of Detroit. And then there's the issue of the schools. Of course, we hear a lot about insurance redlining, residency, what's happening with the water department and who's going to run it. And that brings us to the politics of this area. There was at one time, a very powerful political figure. His name was Coleman Young, and he ran this community, and he ran everything that touched this community. And then after he moved from office, he was ill and he left office, we had the county pretty much taking over most of that rule in the person of Ed McNamara. And after Ed McNamara died, there has been this political void, and there's this behind the scenes fight about who's really going to control southeastern Michigan, who's going to control the city of Detroit, and who's going to control everything around it. I think that's too bad, because that's not an issue that benefits people who live here. But I also think that Detroit is the front porch to the rest of Michigan, and until it is whole and healthy again, the rest of Michigan is going to have problems. And so we need to do the things that have to be done in order to make Detroit a more comfortable place to live and to work and to raise children. And as the mayor, I have a lot of plans as to how I'm going to do that. I've already started doing it when I was in charge of workforce development, human rights, and the law department. And I know what it is we have to do to make things better for all of us.